It was early morning and the city was still quiet. The streets were wet from the night rain and a soft mist hung low over the pavement. The woman walked briskly through the alley, carrying a small bag of bread she had just bought from the bakery. She usually avoided this shortcut, but today she was running late for work and wanted to save a few minutes. The alley smelled faintly of damp brick and old trash, but she didn't notice much. Her mind was on the busy day ahead, the orders at the bakery and the small errands she needed to run before noon. A sudden soft cry made her pause. At first she thought it was a stray cat or perhaps a baby bird fallen from a nest. The sound was weak, almost fading, but it pulled her forward. Her heart started to beat faster as she looked around. There was no one else in sight. The alley seemed empty, yet the crying grew louder. She followed the sound to the far end of the alley where a shadowy corner caught her attention. There, lying on the wet pavement, was a small bundle wrapped in a shiny golden cloth. The material shimmered in the early sunlight, almost out of place in the gray, damp alley. She froze for a moment, unsure if what she was seeing was real. Her eyes widened as she stepped closer. The crying grew louder, more insistent. Her heart tightened in her chest. It was a baby, small and fragile, lying there alone, looking scared and cold. She knelt down slowly, careful not to startle the child. The baby's face was pale and tiny hands curled weakly around the golden cloth. Tears streaked down the small cheeks. She reached out gently and touched the baby's arm. The little one flinched but did not cry out, just shivering softly. The woman felt a lump in her throat and a surge of panic mixed with compassion. How could someone leave a baby here? Who would do such a thing? Beside the bundle, partially hidden under a wet corner of the cloth, lay a small folded note. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. The paper was soaked around the edges, but the writing was still legible. She unfolded it carefully, her eyes scanning the words. Even before she read it, she could feel the weight of what it might say. Her stomach tightened. There was something heartbreaking in the way it had been left, so neat yet so full of sorrow. Her heart ached as she read the note. It was brief, but every word carried pain and desperation. The mother had written about her inability to care for the child, about fear and poverty, about love mixed with regret. There was a plea for someone to protect the baby, a hope that life could still be kind to the little one. She wrapped her arms around the baby, holding it close to her chest. The warmth of the infant's small body pressed against her, tiny fingers gripping her coat as if it had found some small safety in her presence. Her mind raced. She had to act quickly. She couldn't just leave the baby here. The city streets would soon wake, and someone might come across the child in a worse condition or even take it without care. She had to make a decision fast. She had to keep the baby safe. She looked around the alley again, hoping for some sign of help, but there was no one. The mist hung low, and the wet bricks reflected the dim morning light. She felt a mix of fear and determination. She had never cared for a baby before, yet she felt an immediate responsibility. She whispered softly, "It's okay, little one. I'm here now. You're safe." The baby's crying slowed slightly as if responding to her voice. It was a fragile connection, but it gave her hope. She carefully lifted the bundle, tucking the baby closer into her coat to shield it from the damp air. The golden cloth peeked out from her arms, shining faintly. She hurried toward the street, every step careful but fast. She knew she needed warmth and help. Her mind thought of the bakery nearby. She often helped people who were in need, and she knew some of her coworkers would know what to do. She prayed that no one would question why she had a baby in her arms. All that mattered was getting to safety. As she walked, she tried to keep her own panic in check. The baby's breathing was soft but steady, and she felt a small sense of relief. The note was still clutched in her hand. She read it again, trying to understand the story it told. Each word filled her with sadness and empathy. The mother's love was evident, even in the act of leaving her child behind. There was no malice, only desperation and sorrow. She thought about the courage it must have taken for the mother to make this decision. It was heartbreaking, yet it was also a reminder of the complexities of human life, of the struggles people endure silently. The woman's steps quickened as she reached the bakery. The familiar smell of fresh bread and pastries greeted her, but today it was not comforting. She opened the door quietly, glancing around to see if anyone was there. A coworker was arranging the display case. Their eyes met, and she didn't wait for questions. She stepped forward and placed the baby gently on a clean towel on the counter. The little one looked up at her. eyes wide, still uncertain, still afraid. "Please, we need to help this baby," she said softly, her voice steady, despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. Her co-worker's eyes widened and they immediately moved to assist. Together they wrapped the baby in a dry blanket and checked for any signs of distress. The baby was cold but otherwise unharmed. The woman felt a small wave of relief, though worry still gnawed at her heart. She looked at the golden cloth again, its shimmer now a poignant reminder of the life that had been entrusted to her care. She could not stop thinking about the note, about the mother who had left this child with hope and fear intertwined. Her heart ached for the choices that must have been made, for the circumstances that brought them both to this moment. She wished she could reach out, find the mother, understand more. But she also knew the first priority was to keep the baby safe, warm, and fed. Time seemed to slow in the bakery. Outside, the city began to wake, the sounds of traffic and footsteps growing louder. Inside, the woman held the baby close, whispering soothing words, trying to calm both the child and herself. She felt an unexpected bond forming, a sense of protection and love that came instantly. The golden cloth, once a strange and almost magical object in the alley, now felt like a symbol of trust, a promise that she would not let anything happen to this tiny life. Her mind raced with possibilities. Who would help? What was the right thing to do next? She thought of calling authorities, but she hesitated. She wanted to make sure the baby was safe first, to prepare for whoever came next. She thought of neighbors, friends, and people she trusted. She knew she could not handle this alone for long, but she also knew that panicking would not help. The baby needed calm, warmth, and reassurance. As the first rays of the sun began to break through the mist outside, the woman sat quietly, holding the baby close, reading the note once more. Each word, each line told a story of sorrow and love, of fear and hope. It was a small piece of someone else's heart, entrusted to her care. She felt a deep sense of responsibility, a connection that went beyond understanding. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the smell of fresh bread and the soft sounds of the waking city, she made a silent promise. No matter what it took, she would protect this baby. She would keep it safe. And somehow she would honor the love and hope that had been left behind in that golden cloth in the alley. The woman sat in the bakery, the baby still tucked securely in a soft blanket on her lap. The golden cloth from the alley lay folded neatly beside her, a strange mix of beauty and sorrow. The baby's small fingers occasionally reached out, touching her hands or brushing against the blanket as if searching for something familiar. The woman's heart was full of emotion, a mixture of awe, fear, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. She took a deep breath and tried to think clearly. The baby needed warmth, food, and safety first. She knew she could not leave it alone for even a minute. Yet she also realized she could not stay in the bakery forever. Thoughts of the authorities crossed her mind, but she worried about how long it would take for help to arrive. She needed a plan. She looked around the bakery, thinking of who she could trust. Her co-worker was still there, helping her gently hold the baby while arranging blankets and making a small space on the counter. The woman spoke softly, almost whispering to calm herself as much as the baby. "We'll figure this out," she said. "We'll keep you safe." The baby's eyes blinked slowly, and a tiny whimper escaped, but it seemed to relax in response to her voice. The woman felt a small wave of relief. She couldn't imagine leaving this child behind, not now, not ever. Her mind raced with questions. Who was the mother? Why had she left the baby wrapped in gold? Was there more to the note that she hadn't understood yet? Each question tugged at her heart, making the responsibility she felt even heavier. She unfolded the note again, reading every line carefully, trying to piece together the story. The words were full of love, sorrow, and desperation. The mother clearly cared deeply but felt she had no choice. The woman's heart ached as she imagined the decisions that had led to this moment. Minutes passed and the streets outside grew louder as the city came to life. She knew she had to act soon. She decided to call a friend who was a nurse, someone she trusted completely. The nurse had experience with infants and could give advice on what to do until the authorities arrived. Her hand shook slightly as she dialed the number. The baby nestled securely against her chest. She spoke softly to her friend, explaining the situation and making sure the baby would be all right. Her friend's voice on the other end was calm and steady, giving instructions and reassurance. That simple act of support brought a small sense of stability. While waiting for help, the woman continued to comfort the baby, humming softly and rocking it gently. She noticed how fragile the little life was, how tiny the hands and feet were, how every breath seemed like a miracle. She found herself speaking aloud, sharing hopes and promises she didn't fully understand yet. "You'll be safe," she said. "I promise. I'll protect you." Each word carried both her fear and her determination. She had never felt such responsibility before, yet it felt natural, like it had always been meant to happen this way. The bakery was quiet, except for the occasional sound of a door opening or a tray being set down. She tried to block out the noise and focus on the baby, noticing the small details. The tiny eyelashes, the delicate movement of its chest as it breathed, the faint sound of a heartbeat beneath her hands. She thought about the life this child had already begun, the unknown journey ahead, and the love that had already surrounded it even before she arrived. As the morning moved on, her co-worker suggested calling the local child services. The woman nodded, knowing it was the right step, but she still hesitated. She wanted to ensure the baby was completely safe first. They wrapped the child in another warm blanket and created a small protected space behind the counter. The woman stayed close, keeping her arms around the baby and reading the note again. The words seemed to hold new meaning each time she looked at them. She realized that someone had trusted her completely, leaving the most precious part of their life in her hands. Her mind wandered to the mother, imagining her struggles, her fear, and her love. The thought made her chest tighten. She wished she could find the woman, talk to her, comfort her in some way, but she knew that for now her focus had to be on the baby. The immediate needs were warmth, nourishment, and safety. Everything else would come later. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself, knowing that panic would not help either of them. Hours passed slowly. The baby began to relax, letting out soft coos and small sighs as the woman held it close. She offered some milk she had at the bakery for emergencies, careful not to overwhelm the baby's tiny stomach. Her coworker assisted, helping her feed and monitor the infant. Each small response, the baby's grasping hand, the soft blink of an eye, brought relief and a sense of connection. The woman felt a growing bond, a feeling that transcended words. She was no longer just a stranger who had found a child. She was a guardian, a protector, a witness to the first moments of a life that had been left in her care. She thought about what the day would bring. Authorities might arrive soon or they might take time. She decided to prepare mentally for both possibilities. If the baby had to leave her care temporarily, she wanted to ensure it was handled gently and with love. If she had the chance to remain involved, she wanted to give everything she had. She spoke softly to the baby, describing the city, the smells, the lights, the bakery. She told small stories, not because she thought the baby would understand, but because it helped her feel connected, and perhaps the baby could sense her calm and care. As the morning progressed, more people began to notice the unusual scene inside the bakery. Customers peeked in curiously, and the woman explained calmly that they had found a baby and were taking care of it until help arrived. Reactions varied, but mostly people offered support. Some brought blankets, some offered advice, and a few stayed quietly nearby, giving the woman space to focus on the baby. The community's kindness made her feel less alone. It reminded her that even in moments of unexpected crisis, human compassion could shine brightly. She continued to read the note periodically, finding new layers of emotion each time. The mother's words spoke of love, hope, and fear, but also of strength. She realized that this baby had been loved deeply even before they met. The woman felt honored to be part of this story, to provide safety and comfort during this critical moment. Each movement she made, each soft word, each gentle touch reinforced the connection. She was not just caring for a child, she was participating in an act of human kindness that might change the course of two lives. Time passed, and eventually, the nurse friend arrived. They checked the baby thoroughly, confirming that it was healthy, though exhausted and in need of rest. The woman followed the nurse's guidance carefully, learning how to hold the baby correctly, how to soothe it, and how to keep it calm. With each instruction, she felt more confident. The fear that had gripped her earlier began to ease slightly, replaced by determination and focus. She was learning quickly, driven by love and responsibility. The woman glanced at the golden cloth again. It was no longer just a shiny piece of material. It had become a symbol of trust, of love left in her care, and of hope amidst despair. She wrapped it gently around the baby once more, making sure it stayed close. Every small action carried weight, every touch mattered. She realized that she had become the baby's protector, and nothing else seemed to matter more in that moment. As the day continued, she prepared to contact the authorities, ready to explain everything truthfully and carefully. She wanted to ensure that the baby's story was handled with compassion and care. But even as she made plans, she knew that for now, the most important thing was to provide warmth, comfort, and love. She held the baby close, whispering soft words of reassurance and hope, promising safety and care. The tiny life in her arms seemed to sense her determination, settling quietly, breathing gently, trusting completely. By the time the morning turned to afternoon, the woman had developed a small routine. Feeding, holding, and comforting the baby became her focus, each act of care reinforcing the bond that had formed. She thought about the mother, the note, and the alley, understanding more deeply the courage it must have taken to leave the baby behind. She felt a mix of sorrow, empathy, and respect. Even in heartbreak, love had been present, and it now flowed through her as well. She knew the day was far from over, and the future was uncertain. But in that bakery, surrounded by warmth, kindness, and care, the woman and the baby shared a moment of safety, connection, and human compassion. It was the beginning of a story neither of them had chosen, but one they would navigate together, finding strength and hope in each other's presence. The woman had spent hours holding the baby, feeling its gentle breaths against her chest. Each passing moment deepened her connection to this tiny life she had found. She had managed to feed it, keep it warm, and comfort it, but the questions in her mind were far from answered. She still did not know who the mother was, why she had left the baby, or what circumstances had led to this heartbreaking choice. The note had given her a glimpse, but she wanted to understand the whole story. After careful thought, she decided to start looking for answers. First, she contacted the local authorities, explaining the situation with honesty and urgency. She spoke softly to them over the phone, describing the baby, the golden cloth, and the note left behind. The officer on the other end listened and promised to send someone to take a report and offer assistance. While waiting for them, she tried to gather her thoughts, knowing she might have to recount every detail later. Meanwhile, the baby slept quietly in her arms, a small sense of calm settling over the room. She watched the child's tiny face and delicate movements, feeling a protective warmth that she could not describe. She realized that even though she had found the baby only hours ago, she had already become the center of its world, the first person it had known after being left alone. The weight of that responsibility was both terrifying and beautiful. She thought about the note again. The words spoke of love, fear, and hope. They hinted at struggles that went beyond what she could imagine: poverty, illness, or perhaps social difficulties. The woman felt an ache in her chest, imagining the mother making such a painful choice. She wanted to find her, not to scold or judge, but to offer understanding, to make sure she knew her child was safe. But she also knew she needed to be careful. The city was large, and finding someone who might have intentionally remained hidden was not simple. As she waited for help, she began to ask around quietly in the neighborhood. She approached a few local shopkeepers and neighbors, speaking softly about a baby left in the alley. Some shook their heads, others frowned with concern. One elderly woman mentioned seeing someone in the alley earlier that morning, a person who had seemed hurried and anxious, carrying something wrapped in gold. It wasn't much to go on, but it was a clue, a thread she could follow. Her heart quickened at the thought that maybe she could find the mother, or at least understand more about what had happened. The authorities arrived a short time later. A kind officer entered the bakery, listening carefully as the woman recounted every detail. They examined the baby, confirming that it was healthy but still in need of care. They took the note, promising to preserve it and try to investigate its origin. While the process was official and necessary, the woman noticed the officer's gentle manner, treating both her and the baby with care. It reminded her that even in difficult moments, people could show compassion. After the initial steps with the authorities, the woman was left with the baby once more. She felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion. She realized that while help was available, she was still the one providing immediate comfort and love. She held the baby close, whispering softly about the day, the bakery, and the outside world. The child responded with soft coos and small movements, slowly relaxing into her embrace. Every tiny gesture was a reminder of life, of trust, and of the bond forming between them. She decided to investigate further. She wanted to know the baby's story, even if it took time. She began checking local community boards, social media, and neighborhood messages for anything about a missing infant or someone seeking help. Hours turned into a day as she searched, often returning to the note for guidance, looking for hidden clues in the words. Every line seemed to carry more meaning than the first time she read it. It was clear the mother had poured her heart into the message, leaving behind not just instructions, but pieces of her own love and sorrow. The woman thought about how life could bring such unexpected challenges. One moment she was heading to work, the next she was responsible for a tiny human life whose entire world had just begun. She reflected on the fragility of existence, on the courage it took to make decisions in the face of hardship. She understood, even if only partially, the bravery of the mother who had left the baby in her care. It was not a simple act, but one filled with hope that someone kind would protect this child. Neighbors and friends began to hear about the situation and quietly offered support. One friend brought soft blankets, another came with warm food for the woman and the baby. The bakery, once a simple workplace, had turned into a sanctuary. The woman felt a deep sense of gratitude. She realized that even in moments of despair, people could come together to help, showing that kindness could overcome fear and uncertainty. Throughout the day, she held the baby and observed its tiny movements. She noticed how quickly the child adapted, finding comfort in her presence, reacting to her voice and touch. She whispered small words of reassurance, telling the baby about the world it had entered, about safety, warmth, and love. The connection grew with each passing hour, and she began to imagine a future where the baby could thrive, surrounded by care and protection. In quiet moments, she thought about the mother. She wished she could meet her, understand her fears, and offer comfort. The woman knew that life could be cruel and unpredictable, and that sometimes people were forced into impossible choices. She felt empathy for the mother, understanding that leaving the baby was not a rejection but a desperate act of love and hope. The woman promised herself that she would honor that love, keeping the baby safe and cared for while the search for answers continued. Evenings in the bakery brought a softer light, and the city outside began to calm. The woman sat with the baby in her arms, feeling a sense of peace amidst the worry. She reflected on the events of the day, realizing how much she had learned about compassion, responsibility, and human connection. The baby's presence had changed her perspective, reminding her of the importance of kindness, empathy, and patience. She understood that small actions, even simple acts of care, could have profound impacts on someone's life. The night settled in, and she made arrangements to keep the baby safe overnight. The bakery, usually quiet after closing, was now a temporary home. She prepared a small, comfortable space with blankets and soft lighting, ensuring the baby would feel secure. She stayed close, watching over every movement, every sigh, every tiny breath. Each moment reinforced her commitment, her promise to protect this fragile life. She read the note once more, feeling the depth of emotion contained within it. The words spoke not only of sorrow but of hope, love, and trust. She felt honored to be the one entrusted with this responsibility, to be a part of the baby's story at such a critical moment. She realized that her actions, though small in the grand scheme of life, could have lasting significance. Protecting the baby, offering comfort and care, and seeking the truth about its past had become her mission. As the night deepened, she whispered softly to the baby, telling stories, promising safety, and sharing quiet hopes for the future. The child responded with tiny movements, subtle signs of comfort and trust. She held it close, feeling a profound connection that transcended words. In that quiet moment, she understood the strength of human compassion and the power of care. The bond formed between them was immediate, real, and life-changing. The woman knew the journey was far from over. There were questions to answer, a mother to find, and a future to ensure for this child. But for now, she focused on the present, on the warmth, love, and safety she could provide. Each action, each gentle word, each soft touch was a promise kept. She felt a sense of purpose and resolve, knowing that no matter what came next, she would be there for this baby, guiding, protecting, and nurturing it through the uncertain path ahead. Through the night, she stayed vigilant, holding the baby close, whispering softly, and reading the note again. Every word, every gesture reinforced the connection between them. She knew that in her care the baby had found safety, warmth, and love, and in turn she had found a new sense of purpose, a profound understanding of human kindness, and a connection that would shape both their lives forever. The next morning, the woman woke early, holding the baby close as the soft light filtered through the bakery windows. The child had slept well, tucked into the blankets she had carefully prepared. There was a quiet sense of peace, but also an unspoken tension. The questions about the baby's past had not gone away, and she knew that today she needed to seek more answers. She gently fed the baby, whispering words of comfort and assurance. Each small action was part of the bond that had been forming since the baby was found. After breakfast, she began making calls to local community organizations, charities, and clinics, explaining the situation and asking if anyone had information about a baby left in an alley. Her voice was calm but carried urgency. Every person she spoke to seemed kind and willing to help. Some promised to spread the word. Others suggested visiting specific shelters or support centers that might have knowledge of the mother or the baby. Each step gave her hope, a sense that the story was beginning to unfold and that answers might come soon. As she continued her search, she revisited the note, reading it carefully again. She noticed details she had not before. The way certain words were emphasized, the faint traces of other writing on the paper, and small symbols that hinted at places or people. She realized that the mother might have left clues intentionally, hoping someone would understand and follow them. It was a delicate puzzle, but the woman felt determined to piece it together. She knew that every detail mattered. Hours passed and she kept the baby close, talking softly, singing lullabies and rocking gently. She could feel the baby responding, small signs of comfort and trust. It was a fragile life and she was learning how to care for it with patience and love. Her mind kept returning to the mother, imagining her struggles and sacrifices. She felt a deep compassion and empathy, understanding that the mother's choice, though painful, was made out of love. By midday, she decided to visit the area near the alley where the baby had been found. She hoped that someone there might have noticed something, or that she could find additional clues. Walking through the streets carrying the baby wrapped securely in blankets, she observed the world with fresh eyes. Every face, every building, every sound seemed more significant now. She felt a new awareness of the fragility and interconnectedness of life, realizing how a single moment could change everything. When she arrived near the alley, she carefully looked around, searching for any sign of the mother or someone who might have been involved. A few neighbors remembered seeing a hurried figure early that morning, someone moving quickly, holding a bundle wrapped in gold. The details were vague, but they confirmed the story she already knew. She asked more questions, hoping to gather anything that could help identify the mother or explain why she had left the baby. The responses were kind, cautious, and honest. People wanted to help, and that support strengthened her resolve. Back at the bakery, she continued her research and calls. Some organizations suggested checking hospital records or contacting social workers who specialized in family emergencies. She noted down names and numbers, making a careful plan for the next steps. Every piece of information felt like a piece of a larger story, a puzzle that slowly revealed the truth. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also a sense of purpose. The baby's safety and well-being were her priority, and she would not rest until she knew more. In the afternoon, the baby grew restless, and she held it close, rocking and singing softly. She noticed how alert the child had become, responding to her voice and touch with small gestures. It was a reminder of the resilience of life, of the innate desire for comfort and love. She reflected on the bond that had formed between them, realizing that even in a short time a deep connection had developed. She felt honored to be trusted with this fragile life, and the thought of the mother's intention behind the note made the bond feel sacred. While continuing her efforts, she received a call from a social worker she had contacted earlier. The worker explained that they had begun looking into recent cases of missing or abandoned infants and suggested meeting to discuss possible leads. The woman felt a mixture of relief and nervous anticipation. Finally, there might be a path to understanding more about the baby's origins. She arranged to meet the social worker the following morning, ensuring that the baby would be safe and comfortable until then. That evening, she sat with the baby, reflecting on the events of the past 2 days. She thought about how quickly life could change, how moments of crisis could bring people together in unexpected ways. The baby's small hands clutched at her fingers, and she whispered softly, promising safety and care. She felt a deep sense of responsibility, not only for the immediate well-being of the child but also for understanding and honoring the story behind the golden cloth and the note. Night fell, and she carefully prepared a safe space for the baby to sleep. The golden cloth was folded neatly nearby, a symbol of the mother's love and the mysterious journey that had begun in an alley. She held the child close, feeling its warmth and breathing, and thought about the future. Questions remained, but there was also hope. She understood that this was only the beginning of a longer story, one that would require patience, determination, and compassion. As she drifted into a light sleep beside the baby, she dreamed of possibilities, reuniting the child with the mother, creating a safe and loving environment if reunion was not possible, and ensuring that this tiny life would grow surrounded by care and kindness. She knew the next day would bring new challenges and discoveries, but she felt ready to face them. Her connection to the baby had grown beyond simple responsibility. It had become a profound commitment, a promise to protect, nurture, and understand. Morning came again, and with it, the woman prepared for her meeting with the social worker. She ensured the baby was fed, warm, and comfortable, wrapping it carefully in blankets. She carried the child to the location where the social worker would meet them, feeling a mixture of anticipation and hope. The journey to uncover the truth about the baby's origins had begun, and she was ready to follow it wherever it led. The meeting was calm and productive. The social worker listened carefully as the woman recounted every detail, from finding the baby in the alley to the note and the golden cloth. They discussed potential leads, steps to take, and how to ensure the baby's safety throughout the investigation. The woman felt a sense of relief that there were professionals who understood the sensitivity of the situation and could help guide the process with care and compassion. Returning to the bakery, she continued to care for the baby with renewed focus. Each action was deliberate, each touch and word intended to comfort and reassure. She felt a growing confidence in her ability to care for the child, balanced by humility and awareness of the responsibility she carried. The golden cloth remained nearby, a constant reminder of the mother's love and the story that still needed to be uncovered. Throughout the day, she reflected on the lessons she had learned. Life was fragile and circumstances could change in an instant. Compassion, patience, and understanding were essential, not only for the baby but for herself and others involved. She understood the importance of empathy, of seeing beyond immediate appearances to the deeper emotions and struggles that influence decisions. The note had provided a glimpse into the mother's heart, and she felt compelled to honor that trust. As evening fell, she prepared the baby for rest once more. The city outside was quiet and the bakery was calm. She held the child closely, whispering softly, and felt a profound sense of connection. Each heartbeat, each sigh, each gentle movement reinforced the bond that had formed over such a short time. She realized that even in moments of uncertainty and sorrow, love could grow and flourish, creating a foundation of safety and hope. She read the note again before settling down, considering every word, every nuance. The mother's emotions were clear, and her intentions were filled with love despite the difficult circumstances. The woman understood that this was a story not only of hardship, but of courage, hope, and the enduring power of human connection. She felt honored to be entrusted with the baby's care and committed to guiding the child through the challenges and joys that lay ahead. That night, as she watched the baby sleep, she reflected on the events that had brought them together. She had found a tiny life abandoned but wrapped in care and love, a life full of potential and promise. She knew the journey was far from over, but she also understood the strength of compassion and the difference one person could make. Holding the baby close, she whispered promises of protection, love, and understanding, preparing herself for the next steps in uncovering the story behind the golden cloth and the note. She felt ready to face whatever came next, guided by empathy, courage, and the profound connection that had formed in just a few days. The morning light spilled softly through the bakery windows, illuminating the small space where the woman sat holding the baby. The golden cloth lay folded beside them, a quiet reminder of the mysterious journey that had begun days ago in the alley. She gently adjusted the blanket around the child, feeling the warmth of its tiny body against her chest. The baby stirred slightly, making soft cooing sounds, and she whispered soothing words promising safety and comfort. The world outside was waking up, but inside there was a calm, protective bubble that shielded them from the chaos of the city. She knew that finding the baby was only the beginning. There were still questions that needed answers, and the note left beside the golden cloth was a puzzle she wanted to understand. Who was the mother? What circumstances had forced her to leave the child in an alley? The note was full of emotion, and every reading revealed new layers of love, fear, and hope. She felt the weight of responsibility not only for the baby's immediate safety, but also for uncovering the story behind this small life. After a moment of quiet reflection, she decided to take the first steps toward finding answers. She called a trusted friend who worked at a local clinic, explaining the situation and asking for guidance. The friend listened patiently and promised to help, suggesting places to inquire and people to contact. Encouraged by this support, the woman made a list of possible leads, writing down phone numbers, addresses, and the details she had observed. Each step felt like moving closer to the truth, though she knew patience would be essential. She spent the morning carefully caring for the baby. Feeding, changing, and comforting became a rhythm that brought both of them a sense of security. As she held the child, she thought about the mother. The words in the note spoke of immense love and sacrifice, and she imagined the mother's face, the struggles she must have faced, and the courage it had taken to leave her baby in the hope of finding safety. The thought brought tears to the woman's eyes, but also a deep respect and empathy for the mother's difficult decision. Determined to understand more, she decided to visit the alley where the baby had been found. Carrying the baby securely in her arms, she walked through the quiet streets, observing the world around her with new awareness. Each face, each sound, each corner seemed significant, as if holding hidden stories. When she reached the alley, she carefully looked around for any clues, speaking gently to a few neighbors. Some remembered seeing a hurried figure carrying a bundle wrapped in gold early that morning, but the details were vague. Even so, it was a small thread she could follow, a hint that the mother's story was out there somewhere. Returning to the bakery, she continued her efforts to gather information. She called local shelters, charities, and support groups, explaining the situation and asking if anyone had knowledge of a mother who might have been in distress. Some offered advice, others promised to check their records and report back. She took notes meticulously, understanding that every small piece of information could be important. Each conversation reminded her of the kindness and willingness of people to help when they could, strengthening her resolve. Throughout the day, she focused on the baby, noticing every subtle gesture, every small movement. The child was alert, responding to her voice and touch, and seemed to recognize the safety and warmth she provided. She whispered stories and gentle reassurances, describing the bakery, the city, and the world beyond. Though the baby was too young to understand words, it responded with coos and tiny movements. A connection forming that went beyond language. The woman felt a profound bond, one that grew stronger with every passing hour. Later, she received a call from a social worker she had contacted earlier. The worker explained that they had started looking into recent reports of missing or abandoned infants and suggested a meeting to discuss possible leads. Relief washed over her, mixed with nervous anticipation. Finally, there was a structured path to uncovering more of the baby's story. She arranged to meet the social worker the following morning, ensuring the child would remain safe and comfortable until then. That evening, she prepared the baby for rest. The golden cloth, now a symbol of both mystery and love, was carefully folded and placed nearby. She sat beside the sleeping child, reflecting on the past days. The discovery in the alley, the reading of the note, the calls and visits, and the bond forming with the baby, all of it had changed her life. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Caring for this tiny human life had opened her heart in ways she had never imagined. As night fell, the bakery grew quiet. She remained close to the baby, watching its chest rise and fall with each breath. Thoughts of the mother returned, imagining the strength and courage it had taken to leave the baby in the hope of its safety. She felt a deep empathy, understanding that the choice was not made lightly. The note had carried a message of love, hope, and fear, and she was determined to honor it by providing the baby with care, protection, and understanding. She drifted into a light sleep beside the baby, still holding it gently. Dreams filled her mind with images of possibilities, the mother being found, the baby thriving, and a future built on safety and love. She knew that the journey was far from over, But she also understood that the foundation of trust and connection had been laid. Each moment of care, each whisper, each gentle touch was part of a larger story, one that was unfolding slowly but surely. The next morning, she woke with a renewed sense of purpose. She fed the baby and wrapped it securely, preparing to meet the social worker. Each small step felt significant. She carried the child with care and attention, aware of the fragile life she was guiding. The meeting with the social worker was calm and productive, allowing them to discuss leads, next steps, and how to ensure the baby's safety while the investigation continued. The woman felt grateful for the guidance, knowing that professional support would help navigate the complexities of the situation. Returning to the bakery, she continued to care for the baby, ensuring it was fed, comfortable, and warm. The bond between them had grown even stronger, and she felt a deep sense of connection and responsibility. Each coo, each grasp of her finger, and each tiny movement was a reminder of the trust placed in her hands. The golden cloth remained close, a symbol of love and hope, and a reminder that the story she was uncovering was not only about survival, but about human compassion. Throughout the day, she reflected on the lessons she had learned. Life could change in an instant, and moments of crisis often revealed the depth of human kindness. She understood the importance of empathy, patience, and careful attention. Caring for the baby required not just physical care but emotional presence and understanding. She felt honored to be a part of this child's journey, committed to providing love, protection, and support as the next steps of the story unfolded. Evening came, and she prepared the baby for sleep once more. The bakery was quiet, filled only with the soft sounds of the child breathing and the faint hum of the city outside. She held the baby close, whispering promises of safety, care, and love. The golden cloth was folded neatly nearby, a tangible reminder of the mother's love and hope. She understood that the journey to uncover the baby's past and secure its future was ongoing, but she was ready to face it with courage and compassion. As the night deepened, she watched the baby sleep, thinking about the events that had brought them together. The alley, the golden cloth, the note, and the initial moments of discovery had led to a profound connection. She realized that even in difficult circumstances, love and human kindness could shine through. Holding the baby close, she whispered quietly about the future, about safety, warmth, and hope. She knew the days ahead would bring challenges, but she also felt a sense of purpose and determination, committed to guiding this fragile life with care and understanding.